Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday in snowy Buffalo and snowy New Jersey. How snowy is it there, Russ?
We only got about 3 to 5 here, but if you went an hour and a half north, they got a lot. I mean, even Lehigh Valley probably got about 10 or 12 inches, and then you go a little further north, Binghamton got like 40 inches. So
Wow.
we lucked it.
Well, I mean, the way they were talking on TV yesterday about New York City, it was like snowpocalypse.
I know.
I mean, come on. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead.
So yesterday, Major League Baseball announced that they're going to start putting the Negro League statistics in with their own statistics. But they put certain years. And so there's two things here. So they really picked the years that they felt like had the best players, because after those years, there still were Negro Leagues, but more players were starting to trickle into Major League Baseball. Those weren't the only years, and that's why they said 3,400 players, because really that wasn't all the players, but it's a good start. And, I had showed there's a video out there. People want to look on Sportsology. I retweeted it. I forget who had the original, but Satchel Paige talked about, he interviewed on the Dick Cavett show, old, long-time talk show guy from the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. And he talked about pitching 160 plus games in a 3-year period. Now, again, you go look at the Negro League stats. Those are real stats for Satchel Paige, because even as an old man, he was still good in Major League Baseball. But he said he threw 3 games a day. They had 3 games a day. He would start and pitch 3 games a day. He probably finished them all. And he said the only reason I stopped pitching is because my wife said so.
Wow. I mean, you got to realize in the era of like micromanaging arms and innings and pitch counts, you could go back to say the I think it's 1926 World Series between the Cardinals and the Yankees, where Grover Cleveland Alexander pitched, I think it was games 2, 4, and 6. I'm pretty sure it was 3 games.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then came in relief in game 7 with the bases loaded and finished off the game to finish the victory for the Cardinals. So it's like, and he was facing like Lazari and Ruth and Gehrig, so it wasn't exactly like an easy opponent. So the only thing I'm because I mean, obviously, if you have a if you say, well, the statistics of guys like Jimmy Fox and George Sisler and Al Simmons are etched in stone as being, well, they didn't play against black players. So you have to factor in the fact that they didn't play against the best competition, but you also have to say that the players in the Negro Leagues didn't play against white players. So that's same thing. So the fact that was the case sort of balances it out. So I don't really have a problem with it.
Well, and there's another thing too, like when I wrote the book Pioneers of Baseball, I went back and looked at a lot of those old stats and stories and such. And if you don't trust the Negro League stats, then you shouldn't trust any statistics before like 1935.
Right.
Well, maybe 1925, I'll say. You shouldn't trust any of those either. So you have to,
because most of those stats from those early days were not like official team stats. It was like basically somebody in the press box who just happened to be a stat guy was keeping track of things.
Yeah, and that's how they did it. But guys like Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell. Now, I interviewed 2 Negro Leaguers in my lifetime, a guy named Ernest Burke and another guy named Ernest Westfield. One pitched for like the Baltimore Elite Giants. The other one, I was for a team out in Chicago. I can't remember the name of them. But at any rate, those guys, they had been pushing for this forever. Even when we started Sportsology in 2000, we started interviewing Negro League players or players who would talk about it just to, kind of keep it alive, because they had great stories. And these guys were great athletes. And, I mean, there's no telling what they would have done if they actually could have played in the league with them. But guys, all these guys, the main names that we're going to name, and if they're going to call Josh Gibson the home run king, I'm okay with it. But
because at least we know it's not enhanced.
Correct. And actually, if you really think about it, think about all the hardships they had. places they had to stay, the way they had to travel.
Right.
They had it harder than anybody. So I'm all for this, and I'm fine with all the way the stats, however it works out, and I'm really happy they did it.
In the world of entertainment, I saw this and it made me shake my head. You can make a movie about anything, and if people are stupid enough to watch it, then like there are some things that would interest me that other people wouldn't be interested in. But really, a story about the love affair and life and times of Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson really doesn't get me going. But when I saw who they cast as the two, the drummer from Motley Crue and the hot Canadian babe from Baywatch,
right?
It made me do a double take, not as much for the Tommy Lee, but for the Pamela Anderson. So for Tommy Lee, anybody who's watched the Marvel movies would know who Sebastian Stan is, and he's the Winter Soldier. He has been picked to play Tommy Lee, which, you put tats on him, and
no, he's a good actor. I mean, I have been in on some of the sessions at a couple of different Comic-Cons where he's been at, and he's a really engaging guy. He actually has a pretty good broad range of being an actor. So do I think he can do it? Yes. Do I think this movie or whatever this is going to be is necessary? No.
Yeah, it's a Netflix movie. Now the girl who is playing Pamela Anderson, she's a really good actress. She's an English actress, and you know how English or Australian actors can always change their voice to sound American or Canadian. Her name is Lily James, and she's been in some movies like the Gary Oldman movie where he played Winston Churchill. She was in Downton Abbey. She's been in a few. She was in the Yesterday movie, the one about the guy who's singing Beatles songs and nobody knows. Very pretty girl, but she's sort of waifishly thin, and we know what Pamela Anderson's most apparent endowments were. So let's just say they're going to have a rather padded bra to make her look like Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, but they do all that. That's
I
no
know.
problem.
Right.
I do want to also say to like the chat room, they're bringing up some great names of players that played in the Negro Leagues. Hank Aaron did too for a short time, and he batted cross-handed. When he came up and he joined the major leagues, he was batting cross-handed and hitting home runs. If you ever wanted to try and hit cross-handed, it's so hard to do.
Yeah, you could break your wrists.
You could. Technically, you could.
Larry Doby played in the Jackie Robinson did.
Roy Campanella. He was the second best catcher in Negro League baseball. That's what the Negro League players always told me. And Roy Campanella was a legend. So
right. All right. Hello, Hockey World.
We have big breaking news, by the way.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, December 17th, 2020.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And let's go right to the breaking news desk. Go ahead.
Henrik Lundqvist is not playing this year because he has a heart problem.
Oh, my goodness.
They've decided that the risk of playing before remedying my condition is too high.
Wow. That is okay. So
he's going to come back. That's the talk is he wants to still play, but yeah.
So for the entire, and now the question is that tied to the fear of getting COVID and things like, like athletes like Eduardo Rodriguez from the Red Sox who got the I can't remember the medical term, but it was a myocardial something.
Yeah.
That basically makes the heart muscle either too heavy or not flexible enough, and that could be a lifetime situation. Also the player that we talked about from the University of Florida that passed out, they think that there was something COVID related because he had COVID, and maybe it was tied to that. I mean, that's shocking news just because it's Lundqvist, but
here's the thing, because he's talking about it being remedied, he may have to get like a slight procedure, and that's happened to numerous athletes, young and old, because they detect little defects and they say, hey, if you just do this and with rest, it'll get better. And so it's probably something like that.
but he's ruling himself out for the entire season.
He's out for the season.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at it from.
He said it breaks his heart, literally.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He's even under these circumstances, he still had a good sense of humor about it.
So let's look at this from a Washington Capitals perspective, because now Braden Holtby has departed via free agency. You bring in Lundqvist on a 1-year deal at $1.5 million, so a rather inexpensive contract. I believe they were pretty much up against the cap. I'm going to pull up Cap Friendly just to see where they were. So there's not a lot of cap space opened up by him going on LTIR. I believe they were right up against it because they made let's see here. No, they were okay. They were over the cap, so this brings them under the cap. So they have no cap space.
So they have to really hope that Samsonov is ready.
Now that's the thing. Samsonov
medically, I mean, obviously he's ready. Otherwise,
Samsonov is coming off an off-season injury. We don't know where he is now. They do have two backups that have NHL experience, not a lot of experience: Phoenix Copley and Vitek Vanacek. Yeah. And I remember Vanacek playing last year, so they're not in a terrible situation there. But all the weight now is on Samsonov.
Yeah. All the weight is on him, and this is a spot for him to be in. I mean, it really is. I mean, now he has the pressure. They do have other players, though, and Vanacek, I think, is a decent goalie, but this does sort of make you relook or rethink or reimagine what the Capitals might be. I think the biggest thing is just don't overload Samsonov with games. I think give him the lion's share, but don't give him too much of that. And if Vanacek comes up short, then you know what? Give Craig Anderson a call right now. Something like that if you're worried about that.
I was going to say, I just pulled up the free agent list in terms of goaltenders. And, Craig Anderson, Jimmy Howard, Ryan Miller. There's not a lot of options, but if you're looking for somebody who can take some of the heat off of them, I would say Anderson or Howard, since they played last year and Miller was a backup last year, they could do it. Statistically, the best one was Miller at .907 save percentage, 3.10 goals against.
Right.
Howard was terrible last year, but the wings were terrible, so that's no indication. But they would basically have to come in on a league minimum deal.
But I think you might be able to get him to do it, knowing that he'd get a fair amount of games on a very competitive team.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a better chance that it would be Howard than it would be Anderson for one simple reason. Like I mentioned previously, Anderson's wife is a recovering cancer victim.
Right, that's true too.
If he's playing, he's exposing himself to potentially getting COVID, and then that I would think that he would probably. I think he's going to end up retiring because of that. But
no, and he might. And Howard's not a bad option for 25 games. I mean. Right. Vanacek certainly more mobile than Howard at this point, but Howard can sometimes play a decent net. There were some games last year where we felt like they were okay. So This is a tough spot for the Capitals. I mean, this really is. This is something, but we're starting to see this. Like, Matt Zuccarello's arm surgery, like where did that come from? Why now? Is it because he heard it in practice, or was he sort of like trying to play through the injury? Like, why?
Well, I'll bring it up now because it's along the same lines, even though it's not a goaltender who's as prominent as Lundqvist. We saw the information yesterday that Alex Stalock suffered a upper body injury and is out indefinitely, and to the point that it forced Minnesota to sign the Hamburglar Andrew Hammond to a 1-year, 2-way deal. Now, the thing is, I think they bring him in because they're going to need somebody in terms of depth. Because more than likely what's going to happen is that Cahonen, their number 3 goalie, the developmental guy, who they probably were going to play in the AHL, would move up to play number 2 behind Cam Talbot, and Hammond would be the number 3 in case somebody gets injured. So, By the
way, Phoenix Copley's still under contract for the Cap, so that's they at least have a third, and he's not bad either. Yeah, as far as this with the Wild and Stalock, again. Did he have some sort of concussion, doing something around the house, practicing? Who knows? But I don't get the feeling he's going to be out for a long stretch of time,
Right.
but I think clearly he's going to be out for a month or two, and that's why they went and got the Hamburglar. They're lucky they got Talbot because Stalock was a big deal on that team last year, and he still could be a big deal this year when he comes back.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. Hammond's going to play a few games. They're going to put the workload directly on Cam Talbot. They don't care. They're going to want wins, and they're not going to do a 50-50 split there. It's going to be like 85-15 or maybe even worse.
No, I think they're going to play Cajonen. I think they're going to play the young guy.
I don't know yet. I know that's the easy thing to say, but here, you got to hear me out on this.
Yeah.
Is it better for him to play Cajonen to play 25 games at the NHL level or to play another 50? Because he's only really played like 50 or 60 games in his entire pro hockey career combined in the AHL, which, if the NHL does kick in for the AHL, it's going to happen. I think you keep him at the AHL and you only use him if you have to use him. That's why you got Cam Talbot in the first place.
Well, I mean, you can bring him up and down depending, because he's young enough that he's not going to be exposed to waivers. But the thing is that we don't know what's going to happen with the American Hockey League yet. I'm assuming right now, because we've seen the Western Hockey League push their date back. We've seen the Q not saying they're not going to come back until at least January. Maybe they'll move it to February. The OHL hasn't started yet. The ECHL, 9 teams. I mean, right now we don't know what's going to happen with the AHL, and if they don't play, then he might be part of the taxi squad. And I think they would rather play him than Andrew Hammond, who's not really a great goaltender. But we'll see. Right.
It'll be interesting, but I think you still have to look at it like, you know what? Let these two guys start the season. Let him start in the AHL.
No.
Maybe let him start the first 10 games in the AHL, right? And then if he's ripping it up, then maybe you have a decision to make. If he's all of a sudden a little up and down again because he's a young goalie, then you make the right decision.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that the AHL season is going to start early February, and the NHL, if all things being equal, they say they're going to start January 13th. So that's
you and I think more like January 20th, though, when you start crunching the numbers. Let's be real here.
Well, I keep thinking that, but every time I keep thinking that, somebody else keeps saying they're going to do January 13th.
Because again, that's just like the South's going to do it again. Leonard Skinner thought that, but
Jesus, wow, that joke. Crashed.
Nice thought.
That joke crashed.
I don't know about that.
I'm just kidding. I was just Leonard Skinner joke, but I'm both.
I know.
So the news of it, and okay, I continue to be the cynic on this show. In looking at rosters, we said, oh, Johnny Boychuk, if they could trade that contract, and then all of a sudden he's got an injury that forces him to retire. And I'm sure there was an injury that was valid, but it just seemed too good to be true that all of a sudden $6 million of Johnny Boychuk opens up. Well, today, lo and behold, Alex Steen announces that he has a degenerative back injury and he's retiring, and that magically wipes $5.75 million off of the St. Louis Blues cap. And lo and behold, now they can re-sign Vince Dunn and not go over the cap, and maybe they can even add a player. And that's not even including Tarasenko's money on LTIR, which will probably happen because they don't know when he's going to come back. So all of a sudden, Doug Armstrong has got money to play with, Russ.
Yeah, if you remember about a month and a half ago, I brought this up as a scenario because we were looking. The whole show was looking at their roster, thinking how could they work this out? And I remember looking at Alex Steen and saying, he's close to the end of his career here,
right.
and I think. This goes back to something Kevin Allen said, which I do think is true. A lot of times hockey players ignore medical advice and keep playing.
Right.
And then that's why you get these guys that all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm done. He's probably had this for more than just, the last year. He's probably had it. Because, again, I have a bulging disc in my neck. I've had it for 20 years, right? So he's probably had it for a long time. And now it's just at the point where it's like, all right.
Yeah, like Zetterberg, that's who Kevin was. Like the back injury that he had, he shouldn't have played the last 2 years. But coincidentally, when his contract went down to making $1 million, when the cap hit was over 6, that's when he decided it was too much.
Right.
So,
No, but I'm just saying there's these things that all of a sudden the player looks at and then decides, you know what? But yeah, it certainly is nice and convenient and whatever. I mean, these are the things we're used to this in the NHL now. And this isn't the last one. This will probably happen in Tampa too. So, we've been talking about it and I don't see any other way out unless all of a sudden they make a lopsided trade. So it's going to be a lopsided trade or Steve Stamkos is going to go on LTIR too.
Right. I mean, and these are completely unsubstantiated rumors, but if all of a sudden you see Zetterberg's contract traded to Tampa Bay, and they're at the cap right now or over the cap, and Zetterberg's cap hit is $6.08 million, and they put him on LTIR, that opens up about $5.5 million $5 million in cap space, and then they might be able to squeeze Cirelli and Cernak for a year. Then they probably have to give up a second or a first round pick to get Zetterberg, and it's just to get the LTIR money. So
yeah,
that's a possibility, but it's not a permanent solution. They're going to have. They're gonna be basically paying Seattle to take somebody off their hands next year just to save them from having to pay money. So
so remember, next year is the year Marian Hossa comes back too. Okay. I'm telling you.
I know. But hey,
I could be wrong. It's just
when he does, you can strut around, like Ric Flair in the rain.
Right. But on the side note with Tampa, and I think this is worthy of talking about for a minute. The side note with them is it was very interesting to find out what the Raptors had spoken to Amalie Arena, and who owns Amalie Arena, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're going to allow fans into the building and they're starting to sell tickets. Well, guess what? The Lightning are making money from that. Mm-hmm. And so if you think when this agreement is in place that all of a sudden the Lightning aren't going to have fans in their building when they're making money off the NBA franchise, I think that's crazy. And I think that's probably, one of those little holdups that now is a big deal for them because that's revenue.
Yeah, I'm sure MLS&E is getting a piece of that, but
yeah,
I'm sure they would rather have it in their building.
Sure.
Okay, so in regards to the return to play and the latest news, yesterday Gary Bettman was interviewed by Nick Kostanica of NHL.com, and he was quoted in saying, we're focused on whether or not we're going to play in our buildings and do some limited traveling or play in a bubble. That's something we're working on and getting medical advice on. He says, we have a couple of clubs that can't hold training camp or conduct games even without fans in their current buildings and facilities, and we're going to have them move somewhere else to play. Now, here's the thing. Clearly, the teams want to play in their own buildings. The teams and the teams and the players want to be able to live with their families at home, play in their home buildings. And if it isn't in front of fans, that's fine. But that's what they want. They didn't like the bubble. They did it to get through the season. After the fact, all the promises they were made about the bubble being this and the bubble being that. It was someplace to play games. There was someplace to stay healthy, but they didn't like the accommodations. They didn't like being away from their families. It was an ordeal that they don't want to go through again. So if it's a question of one or two teams that can't play in their respective buildings, then those two teams are going to have to move. I can't see all 31 teams having to play in regional bubbles because San Jose and another team can't play in their home cities. That's unfair to the other 29 teams.
It is, and I don't think that's going to happen. And I hear little whisperings about teams playing in their buildings. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think that was just an additional last minute negotiating point.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we've talked to Anthony Fauci. This is what he's suggesting. We're thinking about this.
Yeah.
And then the other side saying no, but you know what? We don't want to do that. And then, maybe the league goes, well, hey, we can move off of this if, I think that's where we're at in these negotiations. And again, I just wish it didn't take this long because the NBA has gotten a jump on them. The NBA should not be starting before the NHL, but they are. And they're getting a jump on them. And literally now the NHL is going to be the last sport starting back up for winter sports, and that's not going to be a great way to sort of go into this season. I know they want to do it safely, and I'm all for that, but I just think both sides waited too long.
Yeah. Now, Elliot Friedman reported yesterday that the potential hubs were Columbus, Newark, Vegas, and either Edmonton or Toronto. Obviously one for each division.
Right.
I again, like I said, I don't think they're going to be putting 8 teams in one city or 7 Canadian teams in one city for a month. I just don't think that the players are going to accept it. And, if they have to wait a week for things to clear up, that might be what delays things a bit.
And I think that's what they're going to do. I really don't expect this to happen. If it does, I'll shoot down the Northeast corridor and cover some games.
Yeah. Now, Pierre LeBrun tweeted this morning, as much as it feels like it's pushing it, both the NHL and the PA feel January 13th start date is still in the cards at this hour. Both sides right. I mean, he was just both sides still working away on completing season documents. A reminder that the both Board of Governor vote and NHLPA Executive Board votes will be needed after these documents are done. The speculation is that the votes could happen as early as tomorrow, probably at best over the weekend. I can't see it going much further than that, because I think it was mentioned that by Sunday, players, if they're going to do the 14-day quarantine in Canada, they would have to be back in their individual areas to start the quarantine. And right now, LeBrun tweeted this a couple days ago. 37 Ottawa Senators players are in Ottawa, 36 Maple Leafs. But other than Calgary, who had over 20, the rest of the Canadian team had less than 12 players. So that means everybody is flying in at the 11th hour, which means that they're only going to be out of quarantine like the day before the supposed start of training camp. I mean, there's not a lot of leeway there.
No, I mean, and we'll probably see some guys fail tests as a result.
Remember, it was 10% of the NBA players that failed the COVID test.
And so that's that is going to hurt those teams in camp. That's where they're going to take it on the chin. I do want to acknowledge, with Howard the Duck being talked about in the chat room, that is one of the worst movies, if not the worst movie of all time. And wasn't that a Spielberg movie too?
No, it was a
big time producer though.
He may have produced it, but I think he was involved. Yeah, I'll look right now. I'm pretty sure he was a producer, but I think the director was like Joe Dante or something like that. Let's see here. Who was the same guy who directed? Let's see here. Director. No, somebody I've never even heard before.
Okay. So Spielberg wasn't involved?
No, it doesn't say here. Produced by. No,
I thought he was initially. Okay.
But
horrible movie. Either way.
The only it was the career low light for Tim Robbins, and I don't even remember him in the movie, but Leah Thompson does save it.
Yeah. There's no question about that. I got a quickie Tim Robbins story. I'll give it to you. It's pretty good. I was at an event called like the Robin Ventura bowling event, and so a lot of Mets were there, and you go there and you watch them bowl, but you're really there to talk with the guys and sign autographs, and you're paying your way in, and they make money for charity, right? And so we do that, and we're talking to guys, getting autographs from certain guys, and Tim Robbins is there. And when I went up to Tim Robbins, I said, "Hey, big fan." And then sometimes your mind will just go blank. And I said, "I really loved you in," and instead of saying like Shawshank or something like that, I said Mission from Mars, because I had just seen that.
Oh my God! You mean the movie where he dies and halfway through gets frozen?
Yeah. He took it in stride. He was good about it, but it was funny.
That's nice. Okay, couple more things here about Bruce Garriock reported that the rosters could be 26 players. They're studying that's obviously including a 3-player taxi squad, 1 forward, 1 defenseman, 1 goalie.
Right.
They're studying the concept of these 3 players after they've cleared waivers, but not go to the AHL. So they would be there in case of positive tests or in case somebody gets injured. They would be paid on AHL salary, but would receive NHL per diem.
Right. So this is like a perfect example, like we were talking offline, Nick Robertson. If for some reason he doesn't make the Leafs, he might be that guy.
He might be, but first of all, he wouldn't have to clear waivers.
No, but he could make $70,000, and if there's no OHL, which there's a chance there might not be, or if it doesn't start up until late,
right,
he'd be a prime candidate.
See, this is the thing: does a player have to be somebody who clears waivers? Because you know what I'm saying? It's like, Robertson's on an ELC, and if he doesn't play games, then his contract doesn't accrue.
Right.
So, it might be either he plays on the NHL roster or he has to go back to the OHL.
No, see, I think he'll play on the NHL roster or he'll be that guy. Right. That's what I think. Because again,
but if the OHL plays, he probably goes back to Peterborough because he would play.
I don't know, because remember, I think this is another reason why the Leafs didn't want him going to the World Juniors is you could almost predict. Look at the injuries in the NHL. They're way up.
Yes.
And between that and a positive COVID test, he could still play half a season going in and out of the lineup just based on having that need. So
and being around Spezza and Thornton and all those guys.
In practice and such, yeah.
Right. So, okay, other news. The NHL board, this is according to Sports Business Journal, the NHL Board of Governors could approve helmet ads for this season as early as today. Sources said that the helmet ads for the upcoming season are primarily designed as a make good for naming rights sponsors and founding level type partners. Now, what that means is, Scotiabank loses money because the Leafs are not playing 41 games, so they put Scotiabank on the helmet.
Right. See, I'll tell you, I have a better idea. Idea is,
but that's so they don't have to give back money.
Right. I have 2 ideas. The first idea is to put like helmets made out of like green screen, so you could just beam whatever advertiser you want on there every 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes, or you have them LED so they could have written text that revolves and you could have more than one advertiser. Why not? If you're going to go all in, go all in.
Chico's bail bonds. But see, okay. I've seen that done.
Is there such a place as Chico's bail bond?
No, don't you remember? That's the sponsor for the Bad News Bears.
Oh my God, that's so old. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah. No, but and I've seen this on MSG broadcasts where they shoot the advertisement on the glass.
Right.
And it's like, it looks better on Major League Baseball games because the camera is stationary and they have the blank green screens behind the backstop, so they can shoot whatever on there and it changes inning by inning. But as the play is moving, you got like Celino and Barnes slapped up on the glass and it's moving. It's really distracting. I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah, no, Funky. It's not going to be anchor bar ads. No way, because they don't want murder on the glass. No, but
so I have big breaking news here.
Wow.
This is from the IIHF. The IIHF would like to note that there are sanctions now for senior level men's and women's IIH events and have no impact on Team Russia's participation at the World Junior Championship. So
I was going to bring this up.
Okay. So basically for the World Championships, though, they are sanctioned.
Well, okay, this is there was some administrative body in Switzerland that made the decision that basically there's a 4-year ban. This is tied to the anti-doping from Sochi. The violations that happened before the previous Olympics. Remember, it wasn't Team Russia. What was the Olympic athlete, OAR or something?
Yes, OAR, yeah.
Right, okay. So now it's apparently the ruling has blocked Russia from bidding for hosting events for 2 years. That athletes can be listed under Russia, but they also have to have something about neutral countries in the same like if it says Russia on one side of like the helmet, then it says neutral something on the other.
Right.
They're still punishing Russia for the things that they did, but
notice it doesn't touch the World Juniors.
No, it's only
adult
Olympic events and adult events, and the World Cup, the soccer World Cup. So anything under the international.
But they'll still have teams. They're still going to be there.
Right. They couldn't eliminate them from that because, they just can't. Now here,
wait, Mike. Why do you think they just can't? Do you want to elaborate on that?
No. I was just saying that to move on.
I thought you were going to give me a nice Putinism. All right, never mind.
Oh no. I'm sure Joe Biden will help him. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Now this is not good news for NHL teams or scouts of any stripe, but the under 18 Five Nations tournament, which is the Czechs, the Finns, the Russians, the Swedes, and the U.S., scheduled for Finland in February, will not be held, obviously because of COVID.
Right.
That will make it over a year since the 2003. That's 2021 draft eligible class group has played each other. So basically this group, the scouting that happened before March of 2020 maybe they'll get looks at these players if there is a scouting combine next June in Buffalo, which I would think that there would be this time around.
Yeah, now I think there will be.
Yeah, or at least, excuse me, it would probably be in July because the draft probably won't be till August. So July in Buffalo, get ready. But
that's the only time Buffalo's decent, honestly.
Great. Between July and August, and the rest of it sucks.
You get a 2-month window.
But teams are really going to be behind the 8 ball when it comes to scouting this upcoming class. Yeah,
I will tell you, here's how I've looked at it and how I've done it myself, because I talk about the 2021 draft. And so like I just put up an interview on Sportsology with a guy named Matt Coronado who plays for the Chicago Steel. Now, this year I've only had limited views, but he's played, 11 games. But I did see him last year too at the USHL tournament. And so now people are going to go back, scouts are going to go back, and they're going to be looking at some of this last year's video for guys, and year before too, if plenty of guys go into the OHL and Q at a younger age, and they're going to look at their last couple of years leading up to this year, because they're not going to have a lot for this year. And the shame of it all is, even last year you like to see like playoffs, and you didn't have any of that. So the World Juniors here counts massively. Like I dare say it's going to be 50% on a guy's scouting career here, not from the scout's perspective, but on the player. If you're in this tournament and you do great, it's going to carry you through the draft. If you don't do well in this, it's going to sink you to some degree. Now there is, like I said, there's other video and such, and then if you're not playing, you're not playing, and then you just have to go do hard work like this Matt Coronado. He's not playing in it, but I think he could be a first-round pick. So it's going to be very tricky. We saw in the NBA, they were drafting players that had played 1 or 2 games this season. That's it. So everybody's doing it. The NFL draft, and of course the Jets own that draft with picks, is going to be an abomination too, because we're talking about, like, you sent me a funny text one day. You were like, well, what's I don't know if it was going to be the Big Ten or whatever going to do without teams like Ohio State and whatever playing. And I'm like, they're just going to make it up. And they did. They just were like, hey, you know what? Instead of like 8 or 9 games, you only need 5 to qualify, because they knew certain teams would qualify then, and they would be the big name teams, and they would still get their TV money, right? So this is what 2020 is all about. It's about adjusting, and it's a shame, but these guys will get drafted. But yes, do you have as good a look as guys that you've had in the past? No.
Right. A little more hockey news. Now we're going to take a look at some betting odds on some of the we'll do one today because there's a bunch of them we can sprinkle in over the next few days.
By the way, I want to ask Bada Bing in the chat room if Bada Bing received PPE the last go round from the government, because if they're a restaurant and a strip club, they probably should get PPE. I'm curious of the answer. Go ahead. Anyhow.
If they're a strip club, they could stay open because technically you're not eating there. Oh, well, never mind. Okay, the Chicago Blackhawks, if you remember, during the season, John McDonough and the organization went their separate ways. There was a questioning about who would take over as the president for the Blackhawks. Let's just say the news that came out today shows that Stan Bowman is in very safe hands right now. They've split their presidency. They have a new president of business ops, who we don't care about, but it's not. But Stan Bowman is now president of hockey operations and on top of GM. And Danny Wirtz, I'm assuming, is the son of Rocky Wirtz.
I believe he is. Yeah.
Yeah, is the CEO. So Stan Bowman is in no danger there.
No,
he's well entrenched. And, honestly, I think the job that he's done over the last couple of years, bringing in young talent. Now, I think Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane would disagree with me on this because, they probably thought after the way they played in the playoffs last year that they were, if they added one or two players, they could compete. And instead they let Corey Crawford go. They traded Brandon Saad, and with the goaltending they have right now, they look like they're going to be a rebuilding team. But I still think that in spite of some of those bad contracts like Seabrook and Keith, that they could have a fairly quick turnaround. Yeah,
I think they what do we call fairly quick? Another 2-3 years? Because I don't think they're making the playoffs this year. Yeah, I think it's possible.
If they could get we don't know what's going to happen with Seabrook. The reports are that Seabrook wants to try to come back. I seriously doubt he'd be able to. But
he's going to give it a go. He doesn't care.
Right. If he gives it a go, and then they said he isn't cleared medically, then it's the same situation as Steen and as Boychuk and as probably Ryan Kessler in Anaheim. And then if you look at that, Keith is not the player he was 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still an effective defenseman. They have young guys like Boquist coming up. They have Kirby Dach. So, and they have younger guys like DeBrincat and Kubalik and Strome. So they could turn it around fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is we look at this and we say Seabrook will come back. He'll try. What a team can do to sort of expedite the fact that they may not want him there or don't think he can do it anymore is they'll just pair him with somebody that's really lousy on defense and have him have to do all the work. And if he sees that he's unable to do it, he's just going to leave on his own terms. And it wouldn't shock me if something like that happens.
Yeah, I don't know if they would want to do that to somebody who was integral in them.
Listen, at the end of the day, you can't put him on your top pairing, right? So who are you going to put him with? You're going to put him with somebody you just signed or a younger player, and you're going to see, go ahead, Brent, see what you can do here. And if he can't do it, that's not Colliton's fault. That's not Bowman's fault.
Put him with Connor Murphy. That'll make him retire. All right. Bovada has put out odds for the Calder Trophy, obviously.
Let's go through
them. We'll start with the odds-on favorites. And remember the way the odds are now, and it used to be 9-5, 2-1. Now they're doing plus, and the lower the number, the lowest the odds. So Igor Shesterkin, who he played about a dozen games last year,
11, 12.
He didn't exceed the amount of games that would have made him ineligible for the Calder.
No, 20 or something for a goalie,
or 25 like that.
20 something, yeah.
So he is a plus 175, so he's the favorite for the Calder.
I would not take that bet.
I wouldn't.
It's hard for goalies to win it.
Yes.
It's going to be a shortened season, so he's going to split some time.
Right.
It's going to be very hard for a goalie to win it.
Now, the weird thing here is that the number 2 favorite is on the same team, which is Alexis Lafreniere.
Right.
He's plus 375. And like you said to me, Lafreniere, he might be able to start in the top 2 lines, But more than likely, if they do what they did with Capo Caco last year and not put too much pressure on him, he could start on the third line and, not score a ton of points. And if he doesn't score a ton of points.
Third line, second power play. Like if he gets that treatment, and which is probably just for anybody who's coming into this league, then he's going to have to, prove himself. It's going to take him at least 10 games to prove himself out of a 56-game year. Right. I probably don't bet on Lafreniere either, even though I think he's fantastic.
Now, my rule of thumb has always been with Rookie of the Year, if you can take somebody who qualifies as a rookie but is a little older, a year or two, then I think that player, because they're older and stronger.
It does help.
Yeah. Now, this would have been my favorite anyway, and he's third, and that's Kirill Kaprizov, who's played, 3 years in the KHL?
Yeah.
I believe he was part of that Olympic team, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. He's plus 400. So if I had money, I would bet on him.
He's definitely a good bet. I think he'll be a finalist. I'm not going to say right now who I think it's going to be because there's too many places that have me write articles about just that. But I do think he could be a finalist this year.
Yes.
I don't think he's the best bet, but I think he's a really good bet.
Okay. All right. So we'll go through these rather quickly here. Grigory Denisenko, Florida. He's a plus 1,000.
That's a good bet. I like him.
I think he'll get the opportunity because, as we know, both Mike Hoffman, who hasn't signed anywhere yet, and the Russian who signed with Ottawa. I'm drawing a blank. Somebody in the chat will know. If not, I'm pulling it up in a second, and it is Dadonov.
Oh, Dadonov.
Yeah, okay. Both Dadonov and Hoffman are gone, and really they're strong up the middle, but they don't have a lot of strength on the wings, being the Panthers. So Denisenko might get a top 6 role.
He's got great speed. He definitely could score some points. I worry if I were betting this, I would worry about the coach. Because if he's not playing great defense, does he not get the amount of minutes he might need to do this? So I would think that's the potential drawback there.
Agreed. Quentin Byfield is plus 1,200. I think this would be a bad bet because I think he's probably going to be a third line.
Yeah, he's probably going to start off third line center, maybe second, but probably third. He'll be on one of the power plays for sure. I think it could take him a few games to get going. And I did see some consistency issues last year, even in the OHL. So I think he's a fine bet, but I probably wouldn't put my own money on it.
I think if you're talking about the Kings, this is the better of the two bets, and that's Alex Turcotte at plus 1,400.
Yeah, I think just from a starting off faster standpoint, it could be. I don't think I'd bet Turcotte, though.
No, but I'm saying of the two.
Yeah.
Bowen Byram, the big defenseman for Team Canada, is probably will make the Avalanche. He's at plus 1,500. I
think those are great odds. I would take Bowen Byram. I would put some money on Bowen Byram if I was going to bet.
Now, in terms of opportunity, this one may make sense. And that's Evan Bouchard for Edmonton. And the reason I say that is because Oscar Klefbom is probably going to be out for at least the first half of the year, recovering from, I think it was a shoulder injury. It was either shoulder or knee. But Bouchard is going to get an opportunity. Now, he won't get power play time because that'll probably be Tyson Barrie. But
he might get second power play. He's awfully good at it. And he had a really good year in the A. I think if you laid some down on Bouchard, I don't see a problem with that.
Tim Stützle at plus 1,800.
I would definitely consider that because those are nice odds. You have to sort of see where his hand is at. So maybe wait for a couple World Junior games and see what he looks like.
Yeah. Ilya Sorokin, the Islanders goalie, at plus 2,500.
That's a tough one. I mean, if you're an Islander fan, sure, go for it. But he's not starting the season as the starting goalie. So how many games will he have to sit out because they have a starting goalie in Varlamov? He's going to have to do so great in 3 or 4 to win that job.
Right.
That it's going to limit the amount of games he could play. So I think it's hard for him.
Richard in the chat said Dobson. I think Dobson played too many games this year, so I don't.
Yeah, I don't think Dobson's on that list now.
Now, okay, there's a group of 7 here at plus 3,500, which means that are long shots. But there's a couple good names here. So let me just read off the entire list of 7. We can pick and choose here. Dylan Cousins, Gabe Vilardi, Morgan Frost, Alexander Romanov, Ville Heinola, Trevor Zegras, and Nick Robertson. Okay, let's start with Dylan Cousins. I think he'll make the Sabres.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he'll be in their top 6 because their top 6 is going to be Skinner and Hall on the left side, Stahl and Eichel at center, and Reinhart and the rookie who scored a bunch. The rookie scored a bunch. Victor Olsen. Mm-hmm. So the top 6 is out. That probably means he's playing third line and playing with somebody like Cody Eakin. He's not going to score a ton of goals. Now he could move up if they make a trade and they trade somebody away. He could move up. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if he makes the team, he's going to be in the bottom 6, and they're going to make him sort of learn the right way to play. So I'm doubtful on Cousins.
I also think he's not going to get much power play time at the start, and so that's why I wouldn't do Cousins. That's the only reason.
Vilardi, I think you've already got Byfield and Turcotte on the list, so. I'm not sure where he factors in with the Kings.
I'll tell you what, Vilardi in that small window looked really good, like the old Gabe Vilardi. He's got a heck of a shot, and he's a big guy. Putting a few shekels at those odds for him, that's not bad because of all the guys, he could end up doing it because he's a little bit older, wiser, stronger, and that matters. Now,
if he plays with Kopitar, then that's very possible. I automatically eliminate Heinola and Romanov because I don't think either one of them are going to score the amount of points that are needed for a defenseman to win Rookie of the Year. Because probably they would have to be a monster defensively and score probably 45 to 50 points, and I don't think either one of them are going to score that amount of points. So I would eliminate them. Morgan Frost, is Morgan Frost going to get the opportunity? I don't know if he's going to get
it. Patrick can't cut it.
Right, and it's probably going to be on the wing. It's not going to be at his natural position, which is center. Because
I think they only want to play him at center. I don't. Well,
then he's behind Couturier and he's behind Hayes.
Right, he'll be he would be if Patrick can't go because of the reasons that we know about. Then he would be the third line center.
Trevor Zegras.
That's a good one. I would throw a few shekels on that.
Because Kessler's probably not playing.
Yep.
Getzlaf is in the tail end of his career. Guys like Sam Steele are going to get plenty of ice time. Adam Henrique isn't. But they might, because Zegras is.
He'll get top power play.
Yeah, right. He'll get top power play, and I don't know if he'll play center or play the wing, but he could play center. And that means first or second line. So he's going to get the opportunity.
No, that's a good one.
You and I disagree on Robertson.
I still would throw a few shekels on him.
I mean, okay. The only way that Robertson is in the serious talks for Rookie of the Year is if he ends up playing on one of the top 2 lines with either Tavares or Matthews.
But it could happen. Like, here's what could happen. Let's say he doesn't make it out of camp. Like you said, he's going to have a hard time. But let's say he's on the taxi squad. Then there's an injury. Then he comes in. He scores a couple goals in a couple games. All of a sudden, Keith looks at him and says, you know what, let's move him up from third line to second line. It definitely could happen.
Sure. The thing is, especially with the talk right now that the Leafs are going to start the season playing 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. I don't know how long that's going to last. It could be just, they'll try it for a week or so, and when it doesn't work, then they go back to the traditional 12 and 6. I think they saw what Tampa was doing last year and are going to play around with it. But they also have a guy like Mikko Lehtinen who they want to get ice time for, and Zach Bogosian to use him as a situational and not as a a bottom pairing guy who plays 12 or 13 minutes. I think they want to use him like in defensive situations and penalty killing. But eventually they're going to, they may rotate forwards in and play 11 forwards, but I can't see them for 56 games playing Tavares and Matthews double shift the entire year. So I think that's a temporary thing. So
no, I do think that's a temporary thing. People were asking about Jake Sanderson. He's playing NCAA this year in North Dakota, so he won't be in there. Now Rossi should be in that list. I would put shekels down on Rossi for sure. I don't know why he's not on that list. I think Lundell should be on that list too. But again, whoever makes that list probably doesn't even know of their existence. I would put Moritz Seider on that list, because the interesting thing about Seider, and I sent you the video the other day, he made a hell of a hit in a game, and then some punk takes a cheap shot at him. And that's what you worry about when you send your top guys overseas. His was a clean hit, and while on the ice, the other guy takes a shot at him. And it's like, that's what you worry about.
Well, the question, though, with him is he's playing in the SHL. And if we believe what the SHL said, they're not letting those guys are playing the entire year there, and they're not being released. Yeah. So if he's not over in the US right now for Detroit, then he's staying in the SHL for the entire.
He's going to have a longer wait. So then you probably wouldn't put him on the list. That's true. I wasn't sure which league he was in. I knew it was over in Sweden.
Now Anthony's asking, does Spencer Knight takes Bob's job if he kills it and the US wins? No, he's not even. He's going back to college.
Yeah, he's going right back to college. Yeah. He's talked about it. Basically, I spoke to Brian Berard a couple of weeks ago, and you can go to Sportsology and read the interview. He basically said when Spencer Knight says he's ready, he will get a chance to make the team. And that's when all of that will start.
No, Kirby Dach is not a rookie. He played like 60 games last year and then in the playoffs. So, no, he's not a rookie. Let's see here. We're looking at some questions here. I don't think Dobson took a step back last year.
No, absolutely not. I mean, who was he playing with? How many minutes was he playing? Like, again, when you're a rookie breaking into a Trotz system, it's hard. I mean, just think about who they traded. They traded a defenseman that was excelling in their system, right? So, I mean,
he was excelling so much that they paid the team that traded for him had to pay him $4 million.
Yeah, I mean. So Devin Taves, was doing probably more offensively than even Dobson will do for them, because Dobson's a really good, well-rounded defenseman, but it takes a while, man.
Yeah. So, okay. We believe that we'll have Eck back tomorrow. We definitely will have Kevin Allen, and we'll also have a special guest, unless he has some scheduling problems. I won't say who it is in case we disappoint anybody. But we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. So for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without